Testing. Testing yet again.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. You're all very welcome to the October Plan and Regulatory Services Committee. Agenda item 1 is apologies. I have 1 apologies from Councillor McNally. Are there any others from the floor? Okay, I'm not seeing any lights on. We're on to agenda item 2.0, which is declarations of interest. We can just take them as we go through the meeting. Then we're on to agenda item 3, start with 3.1, which is a draft development plan practice note. Hand over to Helen Stoops on Zoom, who'll take us through this this part. Whenever you're ready, Helen.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, members. The Department for Infrastructure wrote to officers in the Council on the 24th of August seeking comments on its draft development plan practice note 11, which can be found at Appendix 2. The purpose of the development plan practice note is to assist councils and others engaged in the LDP process through the key requirements for the receipt of the independent examination report and the adoption of a development plan document. Once published in its final form, the Council has a statutory duty to take account of it along with other guidance issued by the Department. Members will be aware that the Council must prepare a local development plan for its area, which comprises 2 separate but related documents, that is the plan strategy and the local policies plan. As part of the preparation of the local development plan, the Council must publish a draft plan strategy and a draft local policies plan for public consultation. Following consideration of representations received, the Council must then submit these documents to the Department so that it may cause an independent examination. An independent examination is public examination of the development plan document that is conducted by an independent body such as the Planning Appeals Commission. This development plan practice note primarily focuses on procedures as well as good practice that apply to both the plan strategy and the local policies plan. It sets out the key legislative requirements in relation to the stage that deals with the consideration of the independent examination report by the Department and the adoption of the plan strategy and the local policies plan by a council. The guidance recognises that the new LDP process is still developing and therefore provides a degree of flexibility. It acknowledges when the system has had opportunity to mature, the Department will then be in a position to provide more detailed guidance on this stage of the process. A draft response can be found at Appendix 3, which welcomes the draft guidance in principle, but it raises concerns regarding the guidance providing further clarity on the timescales required for the Department to consider the independent examination report and that the monitoring of all policies prior to the adoption of the local policies plan should be omitted from the guidance. It is recommended that members approve the draft response to the Department for Infrastructure as outlined in Appendix 3. Thank you, Chair, and this item is for decision and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Helen, for taking us through that report. Members, is there any questions on the report? Councillor Nicholson.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and thanks, Helen, for your report. No questions, Chair, just happy to oppose.
Thank you, Councillor Nicholson. So we have a proposal on the floor. Is there any seconders? Alderman Anderson. Thank you, Alderman Anderson. So that's proposed by Councillor Nicholson, seconded by Alderman Anderson. We're all agreed, members? Okay, we're all agreed. Thank you, Helen. Okay, members, we're on to agenda item 3.2. It's an information item. It's an update on plan caseloads. I'm going to hand over to Damien Mulligan, who take us through this report.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, members. Members, the report before you is about planning caseloads, and you'll see some details around caseload information. The number of decisions we issued over the last 6 months, members, 734. Applications received during the same period, 929. And the applications currently in the system stand at 1,585, unfortunately 16 up on where we were last month. But obviously, as you'll see there, members, the number of applications continue to come in. is extremely high. That number that came in actually during the month of September was the third highest of the business year. And the number we put out during September was the fourth highest we've ever produced since transfer of the planning function. So you'll see that there is a lot of output, but the number of applications coming in continues to be high. We just aren't sure at this stage how long that will continue for. But it is placing pressure on the limited resources we have at the moment, and it's impacting on our caseload. So currently it sits at 1585. We're continuing to make efforts to drive that down, as you know, members from previous meetings. The number of call-ins, just to give you that statistic, the number of call-ins during the month of September was 6, making it 17 year to date. You'll also see in that report before you the enforcement quarterly report, and you'll see from that information we have 400, just over 400 current live enforcement cases. We served 5 enforcement notices during Q2 of the business year, and we have 3 ongoing court cases. Maybe just to update you briefly, members, in relation to the resourcing position. The vacancy level at the moment within the department sits at around 20%, and we're continuing to work extremely closely with human resources to fill those vacant posts. But it isn't a straightforward process, but we are reasonably optimistic that we will be able to fill those vacant posts in the coming weeks. We are well advanced in relation to some of the posts, others maybe not as advanced, but we are hopeful that ongoing work with human resources will result.
That's on the agenda, item 3.3. It's about the implementation of strategic planning policy on development in the countryside. I'm handing over to Roisin Hamill, who will take us through the report.
Thank you, Chair. Members will be aware that DFI wrote to the Council on the 2nd of August 2021 to inform it of the Minister's decision to bring forward a planning advice note on the implementation of regional planning policy for development in the countryside. DFI advises that the plan does not add to or change existing planning policy. However, it does re-emphasise fundamental aspects of existing policy on development in the countryside and clarifies certain provisions of it relating to integration and rural character, dwellings on farms, infill ribbon development and dwellings in existing clusters. DFI further advises that the guidance contained within the plan should be read together with the SPPS when plan making and in the determination of planning applications and appeals. Therefore, the plan is a material consideration in the determination of all planning applications from the date of its publication on the 2nd of August 2021, and this applies to all applications in the system prior to that date. Notwithstanding the concerns that members have expressed regarding the document, officers consider it prudent to advise members that the Council is legally obliged to take the plan into account when deciding those planning applications where it is a material consideration. For that reason, members are advised that for those applications affected by the plan, all decisions made by officers under delegated authority, as well as all recommendations presented to this committee, will need to be made having given weight and full regard to the guidance provided in the plan. Members, this item is for noting, but I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Roisin, for taking us through that report. Members, that's an information item, but are there any questions from the floor? Councillor Nicholson.
Yeah, Chair, thank you. And thanks, Roisin, for your report. Chairman, sort of given the nature of this, can I propose we go to committee for a conversation with members, just as obviously we're the planning committee, we'll have a lot of responsibilities going forward, and I think there's a lot to discuss in relation to what our obligations are in relation to this, and I do think it does touch on legal matters, so I'm proposing we go to committee and have a conversation, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nicholson. Councillor McClelland.
Yes, Chair, I would be happy to second that proposal.
Thank you, Councillor McClelland. So we have a proposal and a seconder to go into committee. I just have to read out the following. Members and online viewers, in accordance with the Schedule 6 of the Local Government Act, exempt information, we will be now moving into confidential session of the Council. This means I will be turning off the public feed of the meeting. This will be restarted when the meeting is restarted. Can I ask the IT officers to please turn off the live feed and confirm with me when the confidential section of this meeting can proceed? Thank you. Okay, that's us back into open business. We're still in item 3.3. Are there any questions in open business on this matter, or happy to note? Happy to note. Okay, thank you, members, and thank you, Russian and Damien. Okay, members, we're on to item 4, which reports from Head of Building Control. So item 4.1, street name report for Blackthorn Manor. I'm handing over to Tom to take us through this one.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, members. Item 4.1 is a request for the name of the development consisting of 53 dwellings, and the site is located at Bleary Road in Bleary, and details are within Appendix 1. The applicant's preferred name for this development is Blackthorn Manor. And the applicant's main reason for the preferred name is that it's derived from the ecology of the site noted in the tree survey, i.e. blackthorn hedges and beech hedges are present on the site and are to be retained. They also contend that that the preferred name is in keeping with the long-established horticultural themed development names within the Bleary village, giving examples of Oakdean Park, Cedar Court, Cedar Drive, Cedar Lodge, Beach Close, and Hawthorne Drive. Members should note that the development of a local development of the Ballymick Breeding Road has also got the name Beach Hall. Therefore, officers feel that the third name suggestion would be inappropriate in this location. So as I said, the applicant's preferred name for this development is Blackthorn Manor, and the recommendation therefore is for members' approval, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Tom. Alderman Twyfell.
Just to say that it's a very reasoned argument, and I think it's a very appropriate name. I'm happy to propose.
Thank you, Alderman Anderson. Is there any seconders? Alderman Anderson.
Alderman Twyfell proposed. I'll second it. Thank you.
So it's proposed by Alderman Twyfell and seconded by Alderman Anderson. Okay, are there any conflicting reports on the floor? No, we're all agreed? Okay, so we're on to agenda item 4.2. Again, still with Tom.
Thank you, Chair. This is a request for the naming of a development consisting of 14 dwellings at a site located at Drumney Road in Banbridge. This site was occupied by a row of derelict houses, which have now been demolished, and details are contained within Appendix 2. The applicant's reason for the proposed names are that the site was historically known by 2 of the names, and the third name is based on the townland of Drumney. Members will note from the historic maps of Appendix 2 that the area was originally known as Bryce's Row from 1842, and then from 1905 was known as Smith's Hill, and the applicant's preferred name is Smith's Hill. Recommendation is for members' approval. I'm happy to take any questions members may have.
Thank you, Tom. Alderman Barr.
Same vein as the last one, Chairman. Happy to propose. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Barr. Are there any seconders? Councillor Wilson.
Yes, I'm happy to second Alderman Barr.
Thank you. Any other proposals from the floor? Don't see any. We're all agreed, members? Okay, all agreed in that one. Next item on the agenda, 4.3. Again, we're still with Tom. It's a consultation on proposed amendment to the building regulation technical guidance in relation to changing place toilet provision.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to seek members' approval to submit the attached draft response of Appendix 5 to the current consultation regarding proposals to amend the building regulations to introduce requirements for changing place toilets or CPTs. These will be within certain identified new buildings, but also within certain identified existing buildings which are undergoing a material change of use. The consultation has been issued by the Department of Finance, Building Standards Branch, who are responsible for setting legal requirements contained within the building regulations. This amendment would set standard criteria for CPT facility provision, specifying the types of buildings where facilities would be required, as well as size, capacity, and other factors which would trigger CPT provision. Just for members' own information, CPT-based toilets differ from existing standard toilets and disability standard sanitary provision insofar as they are designed to meet the needs of people with profound and multiple learning disabilities, as well as people with other physical disabilities such as spinal injuries, muscular dystrophy, and muscular sclerosis. These toilet provisions provide specific equipment, including height adjustable adult-sized changing tables, a tracking hoist system, and adequate space for a disabled person plus up to 2 carers. These facilities enable people with complex care needs to take part in everyday activities such as travel, shopping, family days out, or attending sporting events. The standard size of a CBT facility room is a floor area of 12 square meters approximately. The facility would cost in the region of 30,000+. Officers have reviewed the documents and their comments are included in the consultation response form at Appendix 5. And for ease of reference, our comments are in blue to the 6 questions. In summary, the draft council response welcomes the proposals to introduce criteria for changing place toilet facilities into the building regulations, as these facilities, as mentioned, will allow for those with complex care needs to take part in everyday activities. However, the draft council response has raised a number of queries, such as anomalies and ambiguities in the proposed guidance, as well as concerns regarding the list of targeted buildings. Furthermore, this response also notes that many of those CPTs already installed would not necessarily be in locations that would be required under these building regulation amended proposals, but rather they're provided as a direct result of central government funding through inclusivity funding. Again, council officers would support this approach, although would be concerned that, like other regions in the UK, Northern Ireland does not currently have a dedicated changing places fund, which developers or property owners could avail of to assist with the provision of CPT facilities as required. The closing date for receipt of responses is Wednesday, the 20th of October, and given that the committee recommendations will not be ratified until full council meets at the end of October, it is proposed to forward this draft consultation response form to the BSB before the closing date, with the caveat that, given the timeframe, that council reserves the right to add or amend its response as directed by members. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, members. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Tom. See a number of lights on, but certainly I know if Councillor Flaherty was here, should be speaking strongly on this issue, that we take a progressive approach with regards to changing places toilet provision, and it is good to see that this come forward. I do agree that there's some unusual aspects to the proposed change, given that you think that areas where there is current toilet provision would almost have to mandatory upgrade those, such as the likes of our public toilet facilities in our town centres and the likes of our big parks like Lurgan Park, Gosford Park and so on, which may not necessarily be covered by this, but then there are other places like, for example, in the report, a small rural graveyard will be covered, but you wouldn't think that's sort of needed. And definitely the strong point about the Change in Places Fund, I think that would be good to see that come alongside this proposed legislation when it is complete, to help encourage a number of businesses and so on to get on board with this and providing some financial assistance towards fully or partly funding the cost of those change in place upgrades. Those would be my thoughts on it. Councillor Nicholson.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and totally agree with everything you've said. This is we should welcome this. This has been a long time coming. Chairman, if you allow me, I put a change in places toilet in 2005 on a project I was working on. So that was done on the back of the Keown Trust. And they've been a very much an active body in relation to disability and full accessibility for everyone since way back many years. And so this has been a long time coming. But I do agree with Tom, we need to get clarification on the regulations, because as soon as we put it in black and white into the technical booklets, that's where it is. And obviously there'll be we want to get the right, the right requirements. And I totally agree with Tom asking those questions, because I do agree with you, Chair. There's a lot of anomalies in it where potentially you could create conflict down the line with our building control officers and obviously facilities. But look, no, totally welcome it, Chair, and I will second your call to the Finance Minister to release the funds. The funds were agreed in NDNA So there's no excuse. This money should be out and available to allow these people to make these adoptions and provide these new facilities, because it's been a long, long time coming. So I think, you know, as a committee, should send a resounding voice and back Councillor Flaherty and call for the Change of Places Fund to be released immediately by the Finance Minister. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Nicholson. Alderman Barr.
Just echo the sentiments that have been said before myself. I've had the pleasure of touring our fantastic facility behind us here, the South Lake Leisure Centre. The amount of Changing Places facilities within there that makes every wee bit of difference to helping people with disabilities. I'm just happy to support the comments. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Alderman Barr. Okay, I'm not seeing any more lights on. Just to note that this is a decision item, so there's a recommendation if people want to propose it. Councillor Nicholson, are you happy to propose?
Yes, Chair, happy to propose.
Thank you. Proposed by Councillor Nicholson, seconded by Alderman Barr. Okay, members, with a proposal on the floor by Councillor Nicholson, seconded by Alderman Barr to accept the recommendation. All agreed? All agreed, members. Okay. Okay, we're on to agenda item 4.4, which is an item for information. We're sticking with Tom. It's an update on the building control and property certificate application.
Thank you, Chair. This is just to update members on some of the work undertaken by the Building Control Department at the moment. Notably, as members will see in Appendix 6, for the first 6 months of this financial year, we have received just over 1,700 applications. That has a notional construction value of just under 117 million. In September alone, we had 239 applications with a notional value of just over 18.05 million, which hopefully shows signs of continued positivity in our local construction industry. During the 6 month period, we undertook 1,224 plan assessment cases and statutory decision notices were issued on all of these. The department has also completed in this 6 month period just over 7,690 site inspections. And currently, with the influx of applications, our turnaround times are not quite as fast as we would like, but we have commenced with the recruitment for current vacant posts to address this issue. So hopefully we'll get back on target as quickly as possible. The department has also continued to deliver the council's property certificate function for the conveyance of properties across the borough. In this 6 month period, we've received and administered 2,324 new applications and processed and issued 2,322 certificates to solicitors and agents relating to property sales. I'm happy to report that with our new systems in place that we have no backlog with these, and we are turning over at least 90% of these within the targeted 10 days. Thank you, Chair. This report for members' information, but happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Tom. Alderman Wilson.
Yeah, thanks very much, Tom. And it's not often we have 15 minutes left at the end of this section to really focus on building control issues. So firstly, just thanks for all your efforts to date in churning out so many checks and all sorts of regulatory analysis on that over that period of time in a timely manner as well. We appreciate it. But just on a wider point, I suppose it's something that's very topical in the media at the minute with the Insulate Britain protests that are ongoing and across the UK. It's something that's brought to my attention in recent weeks where development that had been dormant or not commenced for a number of years following the slump in the housing market, and that development has now started to be built out, if you like. And with that, as I know it's something I have raised with you at home in the past, those houses are being insulated under the regulation as it was at the time of approval. And on that basis, I have a concern around that in terms of the spec or the level insulation that will be, legally permitted to be used, I suppose, from the developers and the builders' perspective in line with the regulation at the time versus the whole trajectory of, climate and climate change, energy efficiency. Those two issues seem to jar considerably when we consider
The fact that, all the focus at the minute is around efficiency and what we can do to minimize the use of fossil fuels. And yet we have this peculiar anomaly where, a dormant development can recommence tomorrow, but be completely fine with the fact that, a 50 mil cavity wall insulation will be acceptable, whereas that is vastly inferior to what we know can be utilized today in terms of what technology is available, and the benefit ultimately that would pass on to any potential buyer or homeowner going forward, and then the reduction in the amount of oil or gas or whatever they're going to consume in that property to keep warm, if you like, during winter. So I'm wondering, is there some way of those two issues being reconciled, or can building control legislation catch up with the fact that, can we put a stop on this in terms of saying, right, regardless of when the digger comes in here, you're going to have to adhere to specifications around particularly energy efficiency and insulation as they are today, as opposed to how they were 10 years ago, or, whatever the case may be. And you're only talking, I think maybe it's the case, one house could be built, it could be laying dormant for a number of years, and then that process starts again. But, things are so immediate now, and technology has moved on so much, and the arguments around energy efficiency are so high level at the minute around the climate. I think it is something we need to be very, very aware of, and I think we should make some move to try and signal that up the line, that we're not completely comfortable with that, purely from a homeowner's perspective in terms of value for money and, energy efficiency. I just appreciate your view on that when we have a wee bit of time to discuss it.
Thank you, Alderman Wilson. Tom, would you like to come back on that?
Thank you, Chair. And Alderman Wilson makes a very valid point. This was raised at length with our legislators back during the last change in regulations in 2012. Unfortunately, council building control departments do not have retrospective powers. So if the application is made, we can only enforce the regulations at that time. The only change was made back in 2012 was that for a housing development, if it hasn't started above floor level, then it would no longer be valid and would have to have a new application. But that was the only concession at that time. The other thing is that there is an energy efficiency certificate for every new dwelling. But again, that's down to the detail, and the house purchaser might not necessarily know the intricacies of that certificate and what that means for them. What I would say is that members may not be aware, but the Building Standards Branch have informed us that there is a new consultation due to come out in the coming weeks. It's on an uplift to the conservation of fuel and power regulations. So that is a very valid point that could well be raised at that time. And say it has been an ongoing difficulty for us trying to enforce something. The experience has been that generally you have different types of contractors. You have some very good contractors who will do the latest, and you have some who will be down to cost. What we find is that those who are based on cost won't use the higher quality installations until the older installations are actually no longer available. But as I say, we from an enforcement point of view cannot enforce regulations above and beyond when the application is made currently. But as I say, with the consultation coming forward in the coming weeks and months, it could be an opportunity to raise that very valid point again.
Thank you, Tom. You content, Alderman Wilson? Thank you. Okay, Councillor Nicholson.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And I suppose it relates to what Tom said in relation, and it's interesting that he said that there's a new thing coming down the track, because I suppose from our perspective in Northern Ireland, we're way behind the rest of the United Kingdom and the Republic of Ireland as far as our energy targets go in relation to construction. So it'll be interesting to see whether that brings us up to the level on new builds or not. So we'll look forward to see that come out. But no, it is a problem, and not so much in housing developments as Thomas said, because obviously unless they're started, you're into new regs. But on one-off houses and things, and we've all seen things like Tom, say for example, you see foundations dug in the countryside, to secure the planning. Obviously, they have a building control application in, and you were brought out to site to check the found. So does that mean that their dwelling would be on the regulations that it was approved, or would be a new application required?
Spring in, Tom.
Through the chair, yes, a one-off house in the countryside, if it's lying dormant or if it's at foundation level, we can only by law enforce the regulations. We can recommend, but we can't enforce anything that's above and beyond the regulations that were applicable at the time of the application.
Thank you, Tom. Content, Councillor Nicholson? Okay, members of no other lights on, I'm happy to note. Okay, happy note. And thank you, Tom, for taking us through those. Okay, members, we're on to agenda item 5, which is a confidential report. Seek a proposer and a seconder to go into committee, proposed by Councillor McLellan, seconded by Alderman Barr. Okay, I just have to read out the following. Members and online viewers, in accordance with Schedule 6 of the Local Government Act, exempt information, we will be now moving into a confidential session of the Council. This means that we will be turning off the public feed of the meeting. This will be returned when the meeting is restarted. Can I ask the IT officers to please turn off the live feed and confirm with me when the confidential section of this meeting can proceed? Came to resume the live feed. Okay, members, that's us back. We're on to agenda item 7, correspondence, with 2 items as correspondence. So I'll just ask Damien to take us through the first one, 7.1.
Thank you, Chair. Members, that first item we touched upon earlier on in the meeting. There is a letter in from the Ulster Farmers Union raising concern about the planning advice note. They have written to the Minister to ask that the planning advice note be withdrawn. So it's our intention, officers' intention, and members in agreement to send a copy of the Council's response to the Minister to share that with Ulster Farmers Union.
Okay, members, any questions on this? Happy to note. Happy to note. Okay, Damien, on to item 7.2.
The second item of correspondence, members, it relates to an email from the Department for Infrastructure, basically to advise the Council that a review of planning policy on oil and gas development, including fracking, is proposed to take place. In advance of that, DFI will now be introducing new legislation, or have introduced new legislation, which requires all councils to notify DFI of any proposal to grant planning permission for all types of petroleum development. So it's just to make you aware, members of that, that there will be a review of the policy and that requirement to inform DFI of any proposals or decisions of that nature.
Thank you, Damien. Any views on that one? No, I certainly do. So I'd actually ask I think we should respond to the Minister saying that Armagh, Banbridge and Craigavon Borough Council is completely opposed to any fracking taking place within the council area, and would request that the Minister place a complete ban on any fracking taking place within Northern Ireland. If anyone would like to second that proposal. Councillor Duffy.
That proposal.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. We have a proposal seconded by Councillor Duffy. Councillor Nicholson.
Chair, remind me, did you bring this for us in a motion to the council? Like, I think it's a difficult one, you know, from a committee. I think it's a full council matter because, like, we're 41 members, and we're only a committee, and you're actually speaking on behalf of the council, or are you speaking on behalf of the committee?
Thank you, Councillor Nixon. As you be aware, all recommendations from committees other than our planning decisions are recommendations that need to be ratified at full council. So if the decision was to come that we propose to send this letter, that would then be either approved at full council or, you know, changed, whatever happens at full council. So will the proposals on the floor, are you looking to come in, Chair, or Damien?
Yeah, look, thanks, Chair, for letting me back in. Look, the only thing I was going to mention, Chair, is that when the council will be consulted on the review of the policy that DFI is going to undertake, and that we don't know when that will be, but I would expect that will be sort of the end of this year, early next year, and that would be an opportunity at that stage, I suppose, for the council to set out its concerns around fracking or whatever else is in the policy document. So whether it might be appropriate to wait until that stage instead of writing now. But look, I just need to mention that, Chair. It's obviously members' decision at the end of the day.
Thank you, Damien. Certainly as a member's decision, I'd be content with keeping the proposal on the floor. Alderman Wilson.
Yeah, thank you. And it's just on it. I think we've had this on a number of occasions in the past. I think there was going back a number of years, there was positions on wind turbines and various issues around energy and that. I'm just particularly concerned about a council planning department issuing a decision when we have to approach applications generally without prejudice. So I'm not content that we issue any directive on this because it's up to us if such an application comes before this committee to fully consider it, come to the table without any views, yea or nay. And if we do have, then we have to remove ourselves. So I personally, whilst I have a view on many different things, the planning committee is somewhere where you should come and, as we were told extensively in our legal training, come to the table and deliberate on it without prejudice, if you like. So I'm not sure where it's such a blanket decision of a planning committee would leave us. So I'd appreciate Damien's advice on that. Thanks.
Thank you. I'll bring in Damien shortly, but certainly my own view on it is that I don't think a plan application for fracking would ever come to council because a plan application relating fracking, I say, would be considered as a regionally significant application. Therefore, it would be decided by the Department for Infrastructure. So essentially, we would have no view in it as a planning committee. My proposal is that council would write to the ministers, taking a corporate view that we are against fracking and asking the minister to lay down a complete ban on it. So it wouldn't be the planning committee's view, of big council as a whole will be taking that decision. We'll bring in Damien now if you want to come in.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Look, I suppose I have to share Alderman Wilson's concerns about this. My concern as a planning officer would be that the planning committee is putting itself in an invidious position here by being perceived to have predetermined applications of a certain nature. We may never get an application for fracking, but we don't know what does lie ahead. If the planning committee was to make its position known at this stage, it shows it's got a closed mind. It shows it's predetermined the application. It's set out its position in advance. There are legal implications around that. And I think there is a risk involved. I would share Alderman Wilson's concerns. I don't know whether the legal advisor may want to add what I said to that, Chair, if you think it would be helpful.
Thank you, Damien. Just see Alderman Wilson's hand up, so I'll bring him back in first.
Yeah, and I mean, it's completely not from a perspective of having a particular view on what's before us. It's simply from the pretext of the planning committee and its general neutrality on issues prior to them being considered by the committee on an application per application basis. And I know, it's saying here planning policy on oil and gas development, including development involving fracking. So it's covering a wide variety of topics. And, just from my perspective, I don't think it's useful that we, signal our intention, yea or nay, on any application prior to any application coming. I mean, we did have a councillor previously who signalled his intention towards wind turbines and then withdrew himself for all those applications, that ever came. So that was his own volition. He did that, and that's up to that individual person. But should we have took the view as a council that we are completely against wind turbines as a committee, then I think we would have been, it wouldn't have been very long before we would have been in hot water in that regard, because there was plenty of planning applications came in for wind turbines over that early stage. So it's purely from that basis. So I would welcome any other advice. I wouldn't be content, I suppose, if that's the ultimate outplaying of it, for the committee to take or issue that view on it.
Thank you, Alderman Wilson. I would disagree. I think it is entirely appropriate that council as an organisation could take a position against fracking if we chose to do so. If the recommendation would come from this committee or indeed any other committee, that would be then a decision for full council to decide on. Light on from Councillor Toman.
Thanks, Chair. If Councillor Lavery wants to form a council view, he should bring it through the council committee. Or if he wants to form a council view, it should not be done through the committee when the correct procedure is to formally bring a notice of motion. So if Councillor Lavery wants to bring the proper process, we will have that this discussion. The SDLP is opposed to fracking, just as we are opposed to parties trying to form council policy in the wrong manner.
Thank you, Councillor Toman. I would disagree. I suppose any proposal coming from any committee would then go to full council, and depending on what happens with full council, would either become council policy or would not. You could do so either via notice of motion or proposing to agree to a recommendation of a committee report, to disagree on a recommendation of committee report, or indeed proposing something relevant to a report that is presented before committee, which I have done so on item 7.2. Okay, members, so there's a proposal on the floor proposed by myself, seconded by Councillor Duffy, if you're still willing. Alderman Barr.
You did say you were going to bring in legal advice and you haven't done so yet. Can you please do so?
Thank you, Alderman Barr. It was suggested by Damien. I'm happy to do so. Would you like to come in?
Thank you, Chair. I would echo the comments of Damien in this matter, that we have to ensure that any application that could come before the committee or council in future is not deemed to be predetermined, and that it has been considered with an open mind. Otherwise, we could end up in litigation such as judicial review further down the line.
Thank you, Alan. So, light on from Alderman Wilson.
Yeah, I think it's just a build on that. I mean, it's in this day and age, sometimes that's seen as, oh, you're in support of something or you're not in support of something that could be hugely topical, like fracking. I mean, I can sense where you're coming from on it, from an alliance party perspective, from a green climate type perspective, which is totally fine. But where I'm coming from is this committee's autonomy, this committee's just this committee's ability to take any application and deliberate on it without someone leaving or someone before they actually come here going, but you said you're not going to do anything about it, or you've already give us your view on this. That's simply the issue. And this could be about anything, because I have views on lots of things, but it doesn't mean I want to stop a planning policy or a planning application being made to this council for such a thing, and then that I wouldn't be able to deliberate on it. So I think that's where we're coming from. And I just think it's needless. I think, as Councillor Toman has said, the way to bring it is through a notice of motion. If your policy points are to be, that's the venue or the arena they should be decided upon, which is full council, everybody's input. You're not signaling out one particular committee. But I think planning is completely different, because we're one of the most, it's quite a high-powered committee in terms of the decisions we make and where they go after that and the weight people put on them. So that's my perspective on it. I think we just have to be super careful in forming opinions on such a thing that then maybe skews or prevents somebody from submitting any type of application around petroleum or whatever, and the difficulties that'll bring, So I do respect the advice that we have been given on this issue, and I suppose now there's been a proposal. I would propose that we don't then, purely on the basis of the legal advice that we have been given, that we don't proceed down that path, just for the autonomy of this committee.
Thank you, Alderman Wilson. So just your proposal is proposed that we don't write a letter, or you just sort of, opposed to the initial proposal to write a letter, just to clarify?
Just that we don't, signal a predetermination around such a, any application of any type, that we don't signal that as a committee. I'm not against somebody bringing a motion to council and arguing their point there. And it may well be that everyone's supportive of that, but I'm against the committee issuing that type of directive that we are against a certain per se or type of planning application coming to council for a particular purpose. I'm just not happy with that.
Thank you, Alderman Wilson. Number lights on. Councillor Tolman.
Yeah, I just want to follow on from that, Chair. There's procedures there to protect the public and for good governance. And as a committee, we should continue to follow those rules. So I just want to echo those comments. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Tolman. Again, I would disagree. I think the proposal that I've laid down, seconded by Councillor Duffy, is fully legitimate. It's as legitimate as Alderman Anderson's proposal, which I have to say has a seconder, but they're both legitimate proposals. Councillor Nicholson.
Yep, thanks, Chair. And you're right, like your proposal is legitimate, but I do share the concerns of Alderman Wilson, and I will second his, given the legal advice. And I will point out something, and I'll ask Damien, it does refer to in the letter, the decision is to commence work on a review of strategic planning policy on oil and gas development, including the development of fracking, in addition to seeing the outcome of the policy review. Like that policy review will form policy, which we as a committee may have to make judgment on down the line. And if we're turning around and we're saying, closing our mind and saying like this is an opinion before we even see what the outcome is of the plan and policy review, I think it's foolhardy, Chair. I think we have to wait and see. You're entitled to your opinion. You're entitled to your party policy opinion. And at the end of the day, but I think has been outlined by the legal here that we as a committee need to remain autonomous, because this application could come to our committee. There's not necessarily they're all regionally significant, Chair. And I don't think you can say it's black and white as simple as that. There will potentially be applications come to this committee that will be formed as part of this policy. So I would second Alderman Wilson's. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nicholson. Again, I don't see an issue with ourselves having a view, whether it's now or whether it's in a couple of months' time. If you're against fracking, you're against it. Doesn't matter whether it's now or 3 months down the road. And I think, I think it was Alderman Wilson, mentioned the point about, energy efficiency of housing and things like that. We can hardly pat ourselves in the back if we're increasing energy efficiency of houses by 2 or 3%, and then, drilling for fracking in Loughney or Armagh or Katy or Lurgan or wherever it is. Councillor Duffy.
Yes, thank you, Chair. The letter is based around fracking. It's not based around anything else. It's just plain and simple. All committees write letters all the time to the different ministers, different departments. This one is around fracking. It's not around any other parts of the letter or the proposals, what I see about petroleum, about other issues. It's just fracking. So I'm still in support of the letter. It's not a motion. It's not a motion we're looking the council to take. I know that we're looking the council to support it when it comes to it, but a motion is totally different than writing a letter.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Couldn't say it better myself. Funny, reminds me, I had the pleasure this morning of attending the Armagh Planetarium as it's launched its 5-year strategy. And I think Alderman Barr was there as well, maybe one or two of you were also. As part of the planetarium's process, they produced a video for COP26, which highlights, was it Alderman Barr, our place in the cosmos, which shows how how fragile the Earth is, given the grand picture of our whole universe, and how fragile this sort of is. So we sort of do need to keep looking after our environment, and particularly protecting it from any potential negative consequences of climate change, man-made climate change. So certainly it's highlighted to myself this morning that we need to pursue all efforts as opposed to protect ourselves and protect our borough. And I think writing a letter to the minister, saying that we're against fracking in the borough and asking her to ban it, I think it's a small thing we can do, but it's still significant, and I hope we would do. Alderman Wilson.
Yeah, and I mean, it's it's a misunderstanding from where I'm coming from. I mean, the letter's clear that it's a review of strategic planning policy on oil and gas development, including development involving fracking. This new planning direction requires that a council planning authority must notify the Department for Infrastructure when it proposes to grant planning permission for all types of petroleum development. So that's the point. It's proposing that we notify them, but we haven't considered an application yet. And you are proposing to issue a directive on behalf of Planning Committee that prevents or will give the opinion to someone who wishes to come to this committee with such an application that it will not be tolerated, if you like. And you've already indicated as chair that you won't tolerate that. I think that's a major mistake to do for a chair of a committee to do that. And the legal advice, in my opinion, suggests that is the case, that we should avoid doing that. The legal training that we went through, which was extensive back at the start of this whole procedure of planning before, coming through RPA, it was quite heavy on that perspective, on that basis. And this is not about energy. It's not even about the climate. It's about this committee. It's simply about the processes of this committee. So I have my view on fracking, I have my view on that, but when I come to committee, I have to set that aside and objectively consider a planning application. And you could bring anybody could bring a planning application on any type of a motive issue that we could all form an opinion on, and we could issue letters and say, well, I just don't like that, and you're just not going to be bringing it here because we've already formed our opinion on that. I just don't think that's right. And I would urge you not to go down that road. Not from this isn't an environmental issue. It's a pure committee, paper and pen issue in terms of how this committee operates. And it's just simply protecting ourselves from, as we have often been told from our legal representatives, it's protecting ourselves as public representatives and how we conduct our business in this committee. And that's basically where it is. So in terms, yes, push energy efficiency. Absolutely. That was the point I was making earlier. But, this isn't about energy efficiency. It's about the efficiency of this committee and how it's viewed by a potential applicant who wishes to come before us. So that's from my perspective. I just want to make that completely clear in case it goes off somewhere where I'm all for fracking or I'm all for some type of, it's not about that. It's basically about this committee and how it operates.
Thank you, Alderman Wilson. To say that fracking isn't linked to climate or linked to environmentalism is certainly a bespoke view. And certainly, you sort of made reference to it, I suppose, myself and indeed every other member of this committee, including yourself, on each application will have to consider whether they view themselves to be of an open mind, whether they consider the application. There's about, 19 that we're dealing with later on. And indeed, one, I was going to make a declaration of interest, but it's since been pulled as that would be the appropriate thing to do. I have no problem making a declaration of interest if I feel the need to do so in order to keep the impartiality of this committee intact. I also, if I feel the need to do so, to make a proposal on any matter that comes forward before this committee, any other committee, or any other full council. And this issue has come through to us in 7.2. As Councillor Duffy's mentioned, this is about writing a letter. I see no harm in it. We write letters all the time. We even wrote a letter to the minister this week relating to the PAN. I mean, Councillor Wilson, Alderman Wilson made reference to emotions and so on, and perhaps that would be another route to do it. This is also a perfectly legal route to do it. And indeed, it's sort of a bit surprising he's talking about motions, given the fact that he and his party severely limited motions for members. For example, I'm only allowed to bring one motion a month. I've already used it. Now my voice is silent in terms of my ability to bring motions. So certainly, point of order.
Thank you, Chair. I've been sitting there listening patiently. Can the question now be put? Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Barr. Do you have the point of order which you wish to raise? I think I'm required. Yes, Alderman Barr, just that you have to give the order, but I'll tell you what, I will take the question now be put. Okay, members, just to clarify, so we have a proposal on the floor from myself, seconded by Councillor Duffy. I will write a letter saying ABC Council is against fracking within its boundary and ask the Minister to ban fracking regionally. And that's seconded by Councillor Duffy. And then the second proposal, which is sort of proposing not to do that, and I'll take a view. Okay. Okay. So we're going to take the first, that was proposed by Alderman Wilson, seconded by Councillor Nicholson. Okay, so we're going to take the first proposal first. I'll just get myself ready here and I'll request a recorded vote on it. Okay, members, so this, just for the record, proposal from myself, seconded by Councillor Duffy, to write the letter to the Minister, saying that we're against fracking in the council area and asking her to place a ban overall. Okay, members, I'm just going to bring you through here, but when I bring you in, we just wait until you're on the screen so people in the online can hear you. Okay, firstly, Alderman Anderson. Thank you. Alderman Barr.
Going with the legal advice, Chair? No.
Oh, sorry. Just go back to Alderman Anderson.
No. Got it now.
Got it that time. Okay. Alderman Barr.
Going with the legal advice, Chair? No. Going with the legal advice, Chair? No.
Thank you. Alderman Twyble.
Again, I'm accepting the legal advice and saying no.
Thank you. Alderman Wilson.
Legally protected, no.
Councillor Duffy.
Voting with my conscience, yes.
Okay, Councillor Michael Linton's not here. Councillor McClelland.
In view of the legal advice and protecting the autonomy of this committee, no.
Thank you, Councillor McClelland. Councillor McGeown.
Doc, I had it. Yes.
Thank you, Councillor McGowan. Councillor McNally's not here. Councillor Nicholson.
Yeah, Chair, given the legal advice, I'm voting against. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Savage isn't here. Councillor Toman.
Again, with the legal advice, no.
Thank you, Councillor Toman. Councillor Wilson.
On legal advice, Mr. Chairman, no.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson and myself, yes. Just count these up, members. Okay, members, so the vote is following: in favour 3, against 8. As it's a recorded vote, I'll just read them out here. Alderman Anderson against, Alderman Barr against, Alderman Twyble against, Alderman Wilson against, Councillor Duffy in favour, Councillor McClelland against, Councillor McGeown in favour, Councillor Nicholson against, Councillor Toman against, Councillor Wilson against, Councillor Lavery in favour. Okay. Okay, so I suppose we're on to the second vote, and I guess is that automatically carried then? I suppose. Take it that's automatically carried, or no one agreed anyway? Disagreed? Okay, members. So we're now on to item 8. Any other business? Haven't been received any at this stage. Okay, looks like that's that finished. Okay, members, we're finished with the portion of this meeting. So I'd maybe ask members return back for about, we said about 25 to 5 for the planning applications. Okay, see you all then. go live? No swearing from this point on. Okay. Okay, members, that's us back live. We're on the agenda item 5, which is the applications for the Planning Committee. We just have to read out the following statement. Members of the public are advised that the Planning and Regulatory Services Committee is being held in the Council Chamber in Craigavon Civic Centre. However, due to COVID restrictions, the number of persons who can be physically facilitated in the chamber is severely limited. As a result, members of the public are only able to view the meeting on YouTube, and anyone wishing to address the committee has been invited in the first instance as an attendee via Zoom. Audio recording is being used to assist in preparing the formal minutes. Therefore, anyone participating in the meeting consents to it being recorded and being live streamed on YouTube. Also, during the course of this meeting, questions may be asked by councillors who are members of the Planning and Regulatory Services Committee or planning officers, applicants for planning permission, objectors, or those speaking on their behalf. In doing so, councillors endeavour to ascertain the information which they feel is necessary to enable them to determine the application. However, members of the public should note that councillors who do not reach a conclusion as to whether an application should be approved, refused, or deferred until a debate on the application has concluded. Okay, members. So Appendix 1 has been removed from the schedule following the receipt of information which requires further investigation by officers. Appendix 2 has been removed from the schedule as the reason I'm given here is further consultation required. Appendix 3, we're having a bit of difficulty connecting through to one of the people who has had speaking rights, so we're going to skip it for the time being and come back to it. Appendix 4 has been removed from the schedule with the reason given further consultation required. So the first item we're going to be considering today is Appendix 5, which is application number LA08 2021-1069/F. Okay, and I'm handing over to Sinead McAvoy, Senior Planning Officer, but I'm just aware there's a person with speaking rights. Could they be invited to the Zoom at this stage? Okay, so I'm handing over to Sinead to bring us through the presentation.
Thank you, Chair. The proposal is for the development of 2 retail units, application to vary conditions attached to previous planning application, LA08 2020-0902F. The reason the application is before the Planning and Regulatory Services Committee is because it's a major application. Officers have taken that members have read the report in full, and as such, this is a synopsis only. The application has submitted a Section 54 application to vary conditions 6, 7 and 11 of Planning Permission LA08 2020-0902F. The purpose of the application is to vary the net retail sales area of the approved unit number 5 to be occupied by Marks and Spencer from 1,140 square metres to 1,301 square metres and to remove the restriction on the permitted hours for deliveries to the site. As such, while the original application provided a convenient unit of 1,858 square metres gross, which will not change, the net sales area is now proposed to be increased by 161 square metres or 14%. The footprint, elevations, layout, access, pedestrian access, landscape and parking, servicing and location of the building will remain unchanged. All applications for retail developments above a threshold of 1,000 square metres gross external area, which are not proposed in a town centre location, are required to undertake a full assessment of retail impact as well as need. An updated retail impact assessment has been submitted to support this Section 54 application. The application will create an overall impact of 6.2% on Banbridge Town Centre. This is an increase from 5.4%, which has already been accepted under the previous application. It is envisaged that the strong independent food shops in Banbridge will benefit from introducing M&S to Banbridge. Shoppers will more likely to make linked shopping trips to the town centre if they stay in Banbridge rather than leave to visit Sprucefield or Newry. You will note that the range was approved last month. The range has a floor space of 250 square metres of convenience floor space. And as a consequence, a cumulative impact assessment has been provided by the applicant to consider the impact of the range, food and drink floor space in addition to the uplift in the M&S floor space now proposed. Considering the impact, a total cumulative impact on Banbridge Town Centre rises from 6.8% to 7.5%. This 0.7% increase in impact terms is considered not to have a detrimental impact on the vitality and viability of existing centres, including consideration of the local context, and therefore is not considered to be significantly adverse or judged to be harmful. The application seeks to vary the condition to remove the hours for delivery. M&S receive frozen and chilled goods from Great Britain that arrive in overnight ferries. Due to the service demands of all their stores, the removal and restriction of delivery times for HGV vehicles would ensure they can continue to operate and are not restricted to the store times previously approved. The proposed site is in the middle of a large retail park. It is surrounded by commercial uses and industrial land to the rear. In considering the impact on any sensitive receptor, officers in consultation with the Environmental Health Department, the competent authority in such matters, have no objection to the principle of removing these hours of delivery times. Officers have taken into consideration all other materials raised in response to consultation and publicity, and it's recommended that the variance to these conditions are approved. Let's take it through the slides, I suppose just to show you more or less the service yard and delivery, so you'll have an impact in relation to the number 11 condition. But just to remember again, that's the aerial view of the proposed site in which we approved in May of this year. And that's a location plan in relation to where it sits in relation to the Bridgewater Retail Park. Next slide, please. So that's the site layout as approved, and so the layout as approved will not change. The footprint will not change. The overall size of the store will not change. It's simply the internal net floor space for retail. Next slide, please. So the approved plan under application LA 28 is there, so the unit gross floor space will not change. Next slide, please. So that's approved service yard arrangement. You can see it's to the north of the site. So it shares and linked with Tesco, and you'll note from the report Tesco do not have a restriction in relation to hours of operation for delivery times. So this is consistent with the previous approval for that store. That's just a view of the rear of the site and access for delivery. So this delivery will come in, and to the left will be, you can see the large steel structure under construction, which is the M&S store, and then to the right there is Home Bargains, and then adjacent to that is Tesco. Next slide, please. So that's us coming up to the site and site access. So the land to the left is zoned industrial mixed-use land, and there's no sensitive receptors in close proximity. And the next slide is a front view of the site at the present time. So you can see it's well under construction, and this is to seek to vary the conditions. I think that's us. Thank you, members.
Thank you, Sinead, for taking us through that report. Members also attending via Zoom is Eamon Lockery, the agent, and he has speaking rights for clarification purposes. And Eamon, you're very welcome to committee this afternoon. Okay, members, we're into the question phase. Do any members have any questions for either Sinead or Eamon? Not seeing any lights on, members. Time to move into the discussion debate phase. Does any members have any views on this one? Not seeing any lights on, so we move into the decision phase. Is there any proposals from members? Oh, to come in very quickly there. Councillor McClellan, you managed to come in first.
Yes, Chair, thank you. Happy to propose as per the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McClellan. So a proposal to accept the recommendation. Councillor Nicholson.
Yeah, Chair, I think that the report is very detailed and it's clear what what the type of project is. So I'm happy to second the recommendation, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nicholson. So a proposal has been seconded to accept the recommendation for Councillor McClellan and Councillor Nicholson. Are there any other proposals on the floor? Okay, I don't see any. So we're all agreed, members? Okay, thank you. And Eamon, thank you for joining us via Zoom. I guess you got off easy on this one. Thank you. Okay, members, we'll just check to see if the previous appendices is ready yet. Okay, members, we move back to Appendix 3, which is application number LA08/2020/1424/RM. And I'm going to hand over to Sinead McAvoy, Senior Planning Officer, to present the report and PowerPoint presentation. Over to you, Sinead.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. The proposal is for the erection of detached dwelling house, and the reason the application is before the Planning and Regulatory Service Committee is because the application has attracted objections from 4 or more addresses, and the opinion is to approve. Officers have taken, the members have read the report, including the addendum circulated this morning, and as such, this is a synopsis only. Outline planning permission has been granted on this site for a dwelling. As such, the principle of a dwelling on the site has already been established, and this application seeks to deal with the matters reserved only, notably siting, design, external appearance of the buildings, means of access, and landscaping. The dwelling is a bungalow and sited to ensure it does not detrimentally impact on any adjoining or nearby neighbours. The existing landscaping on the site consists of mature trees along the rear boundary of the site, which are to be retained, and the proposed hard and soft landscaping consists of additional tree and shrub planting in addition to a lawn area and fencing. Access is to be taken from the site onto an existing laneway, which then connects to Lowtown Road. This application does not alter, extinguish, or otherwise affect any existing or valid right-of-way pertaining to this site. The addendum report acknowledges that one of the objectors who objected twice are now content with the proposal and have withdrawn their objections. All other objections have been fully considered and documented within the main report. Officers are satisfied the proposal complies with all relevant planning policies, including the SPPS and PPS 21, and therefore the application is recommended for approval. Just taking through the PowerPoint presentations, there's an aerial view of the site in the context of the surrounding properties, outlined in red with the laneway down to the Lowtown Road. Next slide, please. So there's the site layout, and the green line indicates that it's a right of way. So the applicant has shown that there is an existing right of way pertaining to these lands, and then the landscaping around with a detailed landscaping plan and planting plan submitted as well. Next slide, please. So the elevations of floor plans, so it's a 5.5 metre high ridge from finished floor level, bungalow, no upper floor windows or rooms, with a side elevation of a sunroom. Next slide, please. So the site sections through the site, through every property around it. So you can see the separation distance is in excess, well in excess of 20 metres, what we would require for a 2-storey house with upper floor windows. So it exceeds the requirements of the guidance in creating places with regard to separation distance. And with that in mind, we're content that this application will not have any detrimental impact on the amenity of any adjoining or nearby properties. Next slide, please. So that's a view of the site from the laneway looking towards it. So there's a post and wire fence around at the middle at the present time to the rear, mature trees are to be retained. That house in the front of you is number 20A. Next slide, please. So that's just a view of down the laneway. So you can see there's an existing laneway, and our application site is just on the right-hand side here. And that there is the other dwelling to the north, number 20. Next slide, please. So that's a view of the front of the site. So the access will be taken through those gates, the existing access way, and then up to the front. Next slide, please. And that's number 22 to the right-hand side. That is the objector that has now withdrawn their objections to the application proposal. Next slide, please. And that's it. Thank you, members.
Thank you, Sinead, for taking us through that presentation. Members, as mentioned by Sinead, there is an addendum report, and that has been circulated on decision time for us all to view. Okay, members, on Zoom, we have Barney McKevitt from Blackgate Property Services to make a representation as the agent in support of the application. Barney, you're very welcome to committee here this afternoon. You have 3 minutes, which should be appearing in front of you, and the clock will begin to count down whenever you begin to speak. So over to yourself.
Thank you. Good evening, committee members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. I would just like to reiterate the prior comments made by the planning officer regarding the application and the assessment. The council's planning department have been very mindfully considered all aspects of the application and fully considered all the contributions made by both ourselves and other third parties before making their recommendation on this reserve matters application. I would fully support and endorse the council's recommendation, and I look forward to any queries any committee member may have in relation to this. Thank you.
Thank you, Barney, and you're welcome to stay with us for the rest of the session here, and you're able to answer any questions members might have. Okay, members, we're now into the question phase. Any members have any questions on this application? Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Chair, for letting me in. Sinead, thanks very much for your comprehensive report, and you deal well with the objections. I just want to ask you, you mentioned significant separation distances. Could you just give us an idea in terms of actual distances, what they are from them properties? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Savage. Sinead?
Yeah, the dwelling to the left, number 20A, is 25.5 metre separation distance. The dwelling to the back is 32 metre separation distance. It sits 40 metres from the front dwelling house, 40 metre separation distance, and then number 22 is 26 metres separation distance. Creating Places would envisage for a 2-storey upper floor window 20 metres, so we're content that this is above and beyond that probably would be expected in regards to separation distance and impact on amenity.
Thank you, Sinead. Content, Councillor Savage. Okay, thank you. Any other further questions on this one, members? Okay, I'm not seeing any lights on, so we move into the discussion debate stage. Any members have any views on this one? Councillor Nicholson.
Yeah, thanks. Just waiting for the picture up here, as you said, Chair. No, thanks, Chair. And as Councillor Savage said, it's a very detailed report, and I suppose it is a reserved matters application, and it's clear in the report all conditions have been met. So, you know, it does, and I think some of the objectors have been pacified as well. So I think in the round, Chair, I think it's pretty straightforward. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Nicholson. Any other views from members? Otherwise, we move into the decision phase. Okay, members, we move into the decision phase. Is there any proposals? Councillor Nicholson.
I propose, Chair, given obviously recent comment there, that we accept the recommendation. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Nicholson. So, a proposal from Councillor Nicholson to accept the recommendation. Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Chair. I will be happy to second Councillor Nicholson's proposal.
Thank you, Councillor Savage, for a proposal to accept the recommendation. Seconded from Councillor Nicholson, seconded by Councillor Savage. Any other proposals on the floor, members? Not seeing any lights on, members, so all agreed? Okay, we're all agreed, members. And thank you, Barney, for joining us. Not too many questions for you there, so wish you well for the rest of the evening.
Thank you.
All the best, Barney. Okay, members, we're on to application 6, which is application number LA08/2021/1188/RM. So I'm going to be handing over to Trudy Chapman, Senior Planning Officer, to present the report and PowerPoint presentation. So over to yourself, Trudy.
Thank you very much, Chair. The application seeks reserved matters permission for a replacement dwelling and garage and is before you this evening as the applicant is a member of the Planning Department. The application site is located in a rural area approximately 2 miles southwest of Rich Hill. Permission has previously been granted for outline approval for a replacement dwelling and garage, and this reserved matters application meets the conditions of this outline permission, which included a restricted ridge height of 6.5 metres from finished floor level. The design and layout as submitted is considered by officers to comply with the relevant policies within the PPS 21 and PPS 3 and the corresponding sections of the SPPS. Having consulted with DFI Roads, we're content that a safe access can be provided and that ample space is retained within the site for the turn-in and parking of vehicles. I can advise that the consultation responses were favourable and that no objections were received. Officers are therefore content that the proposal complies with all relevant planning policies and recommend that members grant planning permission subject to the conditions set out in the report. And if we could just go to the slides, please.
So that's our location of the site within the general area. Next slide, please. That's our site location plan. You'll see the dwelling to be replaced is highlighted in green. Next slide, please. That's our aerial photograph of the site within the wider area. Next slide. This one, it might not be that clear on, it should be on your iPads, but you can actually see the dwelling to be replaced and the 4 walls intact. Next slide, please. This is taken from the Turnescope Road looking directly in at the site. So you've got the gable end there covered in ivy and its current access point just beside it. Next slide, please. This is taken slightly further up the road, taken from number 83, looking back down. So again, just where you can see my car parked to the right, you can see the gable of the dwelling to be replaced. Next slide, please. So that's taken from within the site, looking at the front elevation. Next slide. That's taken from just through one of the windows. You can see the rear elevation there and the remains of what has been a chimney breast at one time. Next slide, please. So these photographs are taken from within the site, just to the front of the dwelling to be replaced. The top one's looking north into what's going to be the rear of the site, and the bottom one's looking east back down the remainder of the site. Next slide, please. So these are our proposed elevations and floor plans. Next slide. The rest of the elevations. Next one, please. Those are our garage plans. Those are our site sections, and the last one should be our layout. And that's us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Trudy. Okay, members, is there any questions? Councillor Duffy.
Yes, thank you, Trudy. Just a quick question. You are happy enough that it was a dwelling, and in the past, I know we have visited site visits around some other, say, dilapidated buildings, and we sort of had to produce evidence away in the past, from letters or pictures or anything like that there, that it was a dwelling and not a barn or not storing something else. So if you are happy, I'm happy myself.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Trudy, do you want to come back on that one?
If Ruth would be so good to put up the front elevation again for me, please. Thank you. It does have a porch to the front of it. It does have domestic size window openings. And as the next photo then showed, there was chimney breasts inside. So we're confident it was a dwelling. It has all 4 walls intact and has the characteristics of a dwelling house. So we are content, and outline permission has already been granted on the site for this.
Thank you, Trudy. You content, Councillor Duffy? Okay, thank you. Any other questions, members? Okay, members, I'm not seeing any lights on, so we'll move into the discussion debate stage. Any views on this one? Certainly looks like a dwelling house to me, although it's seen better days. Councillor Nicholson.
Thanks, Chair. I'm tempted to, because I know who this application is within the planners. But look, no, I think you're right, Chair. Like, clearly, it has got the features of a dwelling, and I think and the walls are substantially intact, which fulfills policy. So I think it's pretty straightforward. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Nicholson. Yeah, I'd agree. Any other views, members? Otherwise, we'll head into the decision phase. Okay, members, we'll head into the decision phase. Are there any proposals on the floor? Councillor Nicholson.
I propose accept the recommendation, Chair. I propose to accept the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nicholson. Alderman Wilson.
I second it. Thank you.
Thank you, members. There's a proposal on the floor. It's been seconded. Councillor Savage, as you departed during the application, you're not able to take part in the decision. Okay, members, were proposed by Councillor Nicholson, seconded by Alderman Wilson to accept the recommendation. Any other proposals on the floor? Not seeing any lights on. Are all agreed, members? All agreed. Okay. Thank you, Trudy. We move on to application or appendix number 7, which is LA08/2021/0127/A. I'm handing over to Sinead McAvoy, Senior Planning Officer, to present the report and PowerPoint presentation.
Thank you, Chair. The application is before the Planning and Regulatory Service Committee because it's an application that relates to a major application. The application proposes 2 numbered internally illuminated signs depicting the range and 3 numbered non-illuminated signs advertising the brand and type of products the store will sell. Officers are content that the proposed signage respects amenity when assessed in the context of the general characteristics of the locality and does not prejudice public safety. The proposal, therefore, is considered to comply with relevant planning policies, such as the design and level of illumination of the advertisements is considered to be acceptable. For that reason, officers recommend the applications be granted consent. So you can choose the PowerPoint. So it's the location of the range store that was approved last month through Planning Committee. Site location plan reminding you where exactly it is in relation to the Bridgewater retail park. Next slide, please. So that's existing proposed front facade elevation. So you can see at the present time, it will be built with no signage. So the range is going above the entry to the door, and then 2 smaller signs advertising the type and range of product that will be sold. The range will be illuminated, that signage. And then next slide, please, Ruth. I suppose that's the specification detailing of the size of the detail of the signage in bigger format. So the range up there to the left will be illuminated and the other 2 will not be. Next slide, please. And then there's going to be 2 on the side elevation, which will be facing onto the dual carriageway. So the range signage again will be illuminated, and the one beside it, which is the Iceland elevation treatment, will not be illuminated. Next slide, please. That's a close-up of what it'll look like. So it's the range, and then Iceland is going to sit beside it. So that's a view of the existing frontage in relation to the site. So it's going to be beside the Tesco site, as you can see. Next slide, please. And that there's a close-up view of the front of the site that'll be built over. Obviously, it's not built as yet, adjacent to the Tesco. And so that there's a view and approach to the car park just below McDonald's. So that'll be the side just straight in front of you. So that shows you in context of the Tesco store. And that's a view from Google Images from the dual carriageway. So you will see it will be that end site there, and the range will be illuminated while all others will not. And next slide, please. That's just a close-up of what it looked like from the other side. There's a good level of screening there, so there will be a small impact in relation to our small visual presence of the site closer up to the site. I think that's it. Thank you, Ruth.
Thank you, Sinead. Okay, members, we're into the question phase. Does any member have any questions on this application? Okay, members not seeing any lights on, so move into the debate discussion phase. Any views on this one? Range of views or none at all? Okay, we're moving into the decision phase then. Any proposals on this one? Councillor Wilson.
I propose accordingly, Mr. Chairman. I propose accordingly for approval.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Councillor MacLeod.
Yes, Chair, happy to second the officer's recommendation.
Okay, members, we have a proposal on the floor from Councillor Wilson, seconded by Councillor MacLeod to accept the recommendation. Are any other proposals on the floor? Oh, otherwise, are we all agreed? All agreed. Okay, thank you, members. Before we go on to the next appendices, members, I just want to note that, as you'll see, Appendix 9 to 18 inclusive were all presented at the planning meeting last month. However, there was an issue with the live stream in which the audio of those appendices were disrupted. So in order to keep the integrity of the process, these are going to be presented again as fresh applications. So firstly, I'm just going to go on just to Appendix 8 and 9, which is application number LAO8 2021-0778 LBC and LAO8 2021-0921/LBC. And these are going to be presented together, and they're going to be done by Trudy Chapman. Hand over to Trudy.
Thank you, Chair. Members, as the Chair has said, we have 6 of these applications before you this evening. They all seek listed building consent for the provision of fibre broadband, and these first 2 relate to the Old Tech Building and the Old Town Hall in Banbridge. They're before you this evening as they're made on behalf of the Council. Both applications seek to excavate a track from the existing cable box in the footpath to the base of the building. Core will be removed from the inside of the building to allow the cable to be fed into the building and terminate within the existing comms cabinet. The works at the Old Tech Building, this one is the anomaly out of the 6. It actually involves excavation at a depth of 0.4 metres below ground level. A 10mm core will then be made from outside the building through the existing mortar, approximately 600mm above ground level, which will allow the cable to enter the building. So in this case, it actually will be visible from the outside. It will have an elephant's foot and a conduit, which will be used between the ground level and the entry point to the building to house the cable. The Old Town Hall in Banbridge, it proposes to excavate 0.2 metres below ground. And again, the core to be removed in this instance is 30mm. In both cases, the core will be sealed and the track backfilled and reinstated to match the existing. It's considered in each case that the proposal will not significantly alter the physical appearance of the listed structure. Officers have consulted with HED in both applications and are in agreement that the proposals comply with the SPPS and PPS 6 and will not have an adverse impact on the listed buildings as detailed in each of the reports. HED have suggested conditions specific to the building in question, and these have been included in the report circulated. In addition, officers are of the opinion the provision of the fibre broadband will ensure the continued use of these heritage assets. Therefore, officers recommend that consent be granted for both applications subject to the conditions set out in the reports. And we'll just go to the slides, please. So our first one then is the Old Tech. I'm sure you are all familiar with this location, given it's close to our normal home for the committee. So it's just opposite the Banbridge Civic Centre. Next slide, please. So that's our site location plan. That's the aerial photograph of the site. And the next slide. So that's photographs that both taken from Downshire Road. Next slide, please. So these photographs are taken within the site. So you'll see that this building actually does have a lot of utilities along this side elevation anyway, and the cable is to go where the cable is sitting with the red pipe. So that's where the new cable will go along that front elevation or side elevation. Next slide, please. So that's an image of an elephant's foot. That's actually our building in Bridgewater. So we have that. Now this one will differ in that it will have a conduit leading from that. The next slide, please. So those are our elevations, floor plans and cross sections for it. Next slide then takes us to the Old Town Hall, which is in the centre of Banbridge. Next slide, please. That's our site location plan. Next slide. Our aerial photograph. So that's the photograph taken from the Downshire Bridge. Next slide. And that's taken from Scarva Street. So the works are to take place on Scarva Street. Next slide, please. So these are taken from Scarva Street. You'll see the existing comms box in the footpath there. And it's literally to take the cable just across into that elevation between the 2 sets of doors. Next slide, please. And that's our elevations, floor plans and cross sections. That should be us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Trudy. And just to clarify, Appendix 8 relating to the Old Tech Building is new to us, and then Appendix 9 relating to the Old Town Hall was one of the ones that were before us last month. Okay, members, any questions relating to either of these applications? No questions, members, otherwise we'll move into the debate stage. Okay, members, we'll move into the debate stage. Any views on these? Otherwise we'll move into decision. Okay, members, we move into the decision phase and we have to take these one at a time. So we'll take the application or Appendix 8 relating to the Old Tech Building, which is LAO8 2021-0778/LBC. So is there any proposals relating to it? Councillor Nicholson.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Happy to accept the recommendation. Chair, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nicholson. Or any other, is there a seconder for that recommendation or any other views? Alderman Twyble.
I would be very happy to second.
Thank you, Alderman Twyble. So that's proposal for Councillor Nicholson, seconded by Alderman Twyble to accept the recommendation relating to the old tech school in Banbridge. All agreed, members? Okay, we're all agreed. Okay, we'll move on to Appendix 9 relating to the old town hall. Any proposals on this one, members? Alderman Anderson.
Yes, happy to accept the recommendation. I so propose it.
Thank you, Alderman Anderson. Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Chair. I am happy to second Alderman Anderson's proposal.
Okay, members, so we have a proposal made by Alderman Anderson, seconded by Councillor Savage to accept the recommendation. Any other from the floor? No, all agreed, members? Okay, thank you, Trudy. So we're on to Appendix 1011, which will be presented together. Appendix 10 is LA08/2021/0922/LBC, and Appendices 11 is LA08/2021/0806/LBC, and they'll both be presented by Roisin Hamill, Principal Planning Officer.
Thank you, Chair. Members, the next two applications also seek listed building consent for the provision of fibre broadband, and they relate to Lurgan Town Hall and Portadown Town Hall. These applications are before you this evening as they've been made on behalf of the Council, and both applications seek to excavate a track from the existing cable box in the footpath to the base of the building, a core will be removed from inside of the building to allow the cable to be fed into the building and terminate within the existing comms cabinet. The application at Lurgan Town Hall proposes to excavate 0.4 metres below ground level and to remove a 30mm core from the building. The Portadown Town Hall application also proposes to excavate 0.4 metres below ground, but in this case the core will be 10mm through the existing mortar. In each case, the core will be sealed and the track backfilled and reinstated to match the existing. It is considered in each case the proposal will not significantly alter the physical appearance of the listed structure. Officers have consulted the HED in both applications are in agreement that the proposals comply with the SBPS and PPS 6 and will not have an adverse impact on the listed buildings as detailed in each of the reports. HED have suggested conditions specific to the building in question, and these have been included in the report circulated. In addition to this consideration, officers are of the opinion that the provision of fibre broadband will ensure the continued use of these heritage assets. No objections were received in relation to either of the proposals. Officers recommend the consent be granted for both applications, subject to the conditions set out in the reports. And I'll just take you through the slides. And this is the first slide showing you Lurgan Town Hall, just fronting onto Union Street in Lurgan. And that's an aerial view of the proposed site. That's the site location plan. I appreciate it is a bit difficult to see there, but this is the site outlined in red. And the blue line shows the route of the cabling. And these are elevations of the proposals, and you can see the details of the core. And that's a view to the site from Union Street there, just to the front of the town hall. And this view of the side of the site, and the cable will run around the side of the building. And again, that's a view looking back towards the road, and the cable will run around the corner. And then we'll terminate just beside the door. And this is the location of Portadown Town Hall on Edward Street. And again, an aerial view of the site. And again, a site location plan with the site outlined in red. And the line in blue is the proposed cabling. And just shows elevations of the wall to which the cabling will terminate. And that's a view of the side of the site, and the cabling will run around the side of the building. And that's a view looking into the site. And again, just a photograph showing the elevation of where the cabling will terminate. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Roisin. Okay, members, any questions relating to these two applications? Not seeing any lights on, so we can attempt to move into the debate stage. Okay, members, we'll move into the debate discussion stage. Are there any views on this one? Not seeing any lights on. Oh, Councillor McLean.
It's just to propose a recommend.
Oh, sorry, jumped the gun there, Councillor McLean. So we'll move into the decision phase now, and again, we'll have to treat these, both separately. So we'll take the one for application 10, appendix 10, application LOA 2020 or 2021/0922/LBC, which is one relating to the Lurgan Town Hall. Any proposals on this one, Councillor McLean?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, happy to propose a recommendation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McLean and Councillor Tolman.
Happy to second, Chair.
Okay, members have no other lights on. We'll all agreed with that proposal by Councillor McLean, seconded by Councillor Tolman to accept the recommendation relating to Lurgan Town Hall. Okay, we're all agreed, so we'll move on to Appendix 11, which is Portadown Town Hall 1. Any proposals on the floor? Alderman Anderson.
Happy to propose the office recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Anderson. Alderman Twyble.
And again, I'm very happy to second. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Alderman Twyble. So we have a proposal on the floor from Alderman Anderson, seconded by Alderman Twyble, to accept the recommendation to approve for the Portadown Hall. Any other proposals? Not seeing any. We all agreed. Okay, that's us all agreed no's. So move on to appendices 12 and 13 will be presented together. Appendix 12 is LO8/2021/0764/LBC, and Appendix 13 is LO8/2021/0777/LBC. I'm handing back over to Trudy to take us through the report.
Thank you, Chair. As per the previous 4 applications, again, we're seeking listed building consent to provide fibre broadband, in this case to the County Museum and the Shambles Market in Armagh. And again, they're made on behalf of the Council. In this case, each application seeks to excavate a track again from the cable box and the footpath to the base of the building. The core will be removed and the cable fed into the building to terminate within the existing comms cabinet. In both these applications, it's proposed to excavate 0.4 metres below ground level and to remove a 30mm core from the building. In both cases, the core will be sealed and the track backfilled and reinstated to match the existing situation. It's considered in each of these cases that the proposal will not alter the physical appearance of this listed structure, and we have consulted with HED, who are in agreement with us, and the proposals comply with SPPS and PPS 6. HED again have suggested conditions specific to the building in question, and these have been included in the reports. We can advise that there were no objections received and the consultation with HED were favourable, and therefore recommend the consent be granted for both these applications, subject to the conditions set out in the reports. If we could go to the slides, please. So our first one then is the County Museum. It's just located to the east of the Mall in Armagh. Next slide, please. That's the location of the site within the general area. Next slide. That's our aerial photograph. Next slide. So that's the photograph taken from the Mall East, showing the frontage of the building. Next slide. That one's taken from Charlemont Gardens and showing the contrast between the older original building and the later extension that went up in the 60s. Next slide, please. So that's taken from the back of Charlemont Gardens and shows where the works are to be carried out. Next slide, please. So this is the comms box in question, and the track will run across the entrance and terminate just to the front of that red car. Next slide, please. Those are elevations, floor plans, and cross sections. Next slide, please. So this is the location of the Shambles application. Next slide, please. That's our site location plan, our aerial photograph of the site. This photograph is taken from Dawson Street, showing the main elevation of the Shambles Market, and the works to be carried out are to the very right of this photograph. Next slide, please. So this is closer up. You can see there are already a number of utility boxes in the footpath. Next slide, please. So these photographs are taken from the corner. You can see the Armagh one to the immediate right. That's where the tracking will come to. Next slide, please. And that's taken from the Cathedral Road, looking south from the other elevation. Next slide, please. That's our elevations, floor plans, and cross sections, and that should be the last one. Thank you.
Thank you, Trudy. Okay, members, are there any questions on either of these applications? Councillor Nicholson.
No, thanks, Chairman. I suppose I just want to reiterate what I said the last time. I'm concerned with this drilling down through stone walls at 45 degrees, and I really do want to emphasise that, you know, in particular the Shambles Yard is a very, very important historic building in Armagh City, and I would hate to, you know, things to change when things go on site. So we need to be really robust, that there can be no, you know, obviously alternative than what's that proposed, Chair. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nicholson. Do you want to come back on that, Trudy?
Thank you, Chair. We have liaised closely with both the council officers and with HED, and they're content that this is acceptable to them and will work. In addition, we've had clarification from the agents that apparently once the works are done and the reinstatement works are in place, it has to be inspected by council officers to make sure that they're content with it before they can actually go forward to payment stage. So we have that built in, that there will be assurances that it will be inspected to make sure that it has been completed to the council's satisfaction. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Trudy. You content, Councillor Nicholson? Okay, any further questions on these ones, members? Not seeing any lights on, so we'll move into the discussion stage. Any views on these ones? Not seeing any lights on, so we'll move into the decision phase. And again, have to take these one at a time. So we'll start with Appendices 12, which is one relating to the County Museum in Armagh. Councillor Nicholson.
Yeah, Chair, I'm happy to propose.
Okay, that's proposed by Councillor Nicholson. Councillor McLeod.
Yeah, Chair, happy to second as per officer's recommendation.
Okay, members, so we have a proposal from Councillor Nicholson, seconded by Councillor McClelland, to accept the recommendation to approve for the County Museum. Any other views? Not seeing any lights. Are all agreed on this one, members? Okay, we're all agreed on that one. So then we'll move on to Appendix 13, which is the one relating to the Shambles Market. Any proposals on this one, members? Councillor Nicholson.
Happy to propose, Chair. Happy to propose, Chair.
Okay, that's proposed by Councillor Nicholson. Anyone willing to second? Councillor Duffy.
Second, Chair.
Okay, so a proposal on the floor from Councillor Nicholson, seconded by Councillor Duffy, to approve the recommendation. Any other views? Not seeing any lights on, so all agreed, members? Okay, members, we're all agreed. We're on to Appendix 14. Apologies, members, just to clarify, of the discharge of conditions, Appendix 14 is a new one to the committee, whereas 15, 16, 17, and 18 were all presented last month. So Appendix 14, which is application number LA08/2021/0961. Hand over to Sinead McAvoy.
Thank you, Chair. The application is discharge condition 14 of LA08 2016-1150F, and the reason is before the Plan and Regulatory Service Committee is because its condition which relates to a major planning application. Condition 14 required that a drainage assessment shall be submitted to and approved in writing by the council prior to the commencement of any works on site, and any mitigation measures contained therein shall be implemented prior to the occupation of any part of the development. Officers can confirm that a drainage assessment has been submitted. This has been appraised by DFI Rivers Agency, who have no objections to this discharge. Excuse me. Therefore, officers in consultation with DFI Rivers are content that the proposed drainage method and network design are satisfactory, and the proposed development will not increase the flood risk to the proposed development and from the development elsewhere in the vicinity, in accordance with policy FLD 3 of PPS 15, and therefore we will be forbidden to approve. Yeah, I have no presentation because it's not really to show members, but if you have any questions, I'm happy to take them. Thank you.
Thank you, Sinead, and members. The report is in our decision time pack. Okay, any thoughts on this one, members? Any questions? Otherwise, I need a proposing and seconder. Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Chair. Given that the DFA Rivers Agency are content with the proposals in it, I'm happy to propose we accept this discharge of condition. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Savage. Is there any seconder for that? Councillor Duffy?
Yes, I'll second that recommendation, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. So a proposal from Councillor Savage, second by Councillor Duffy, that we accept the recommendation. Any other proposals? We're all agreed, members? All agreed, okay. We're on to Appendix 15. It's application number LA08/2021/0795/DC. Again, we're handing back to Sinead.
Yes, thank you, Chair. This is a discharge of condition 13 of plan approval LA08 2019-1660F. And again, the reason is before the Plan and Regulatory Service Committee is because it's condition relating to a major planning application. Condition number 13 required a final construction environmental management plan to be submitted to and approved in writing to the council prior to the commencement of any works herein, and shall be implemented in accordance with the timescale and details set out therein. It shall include as the minimum the mitigation and avoidance measures to be employed as detailed in the outline construction environmental management plan dated May 2020. This was a requirement from Dira Water Management Unit in response to the full application. Officers have considered the aforementioned final construction environmental management plan, the proposed methodology used for the safe operation of the site and for the protection of the water environment, and have carried out consultation with the Water Management Unit, who have no objection to this discharge. On the basis of the information submitted, officers of the opinion that condition 13 of LA08 2019-1660F can now be discharged. And the same, that there's no presentation, Chair.
Thank you, Sinead. Okay, members, any questions on this one? Let's see any lights up. So we'll move into the decision phase. Any proposals on this one, members? Members giving it a good think. Alderman Anderson.
Happy to propose that accept the recommendation. Most not up. Happy to propose we accept the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Anderson. Councillor McLeod.
Yeah, Chair, happy to second.
Thank you. So a proposal on the floor from Alderman Anderson, seconded by Councillor McLeod to accept the recommendation. Any other views? No, all agreed, members? Okay, we're all agreed. Okay, members, we're on to Appendix 16, which is application number LA08 2021/0421/DC. And over to Trudy.
Thank you, Chair. This application relates to discharge of condition associated with the approval of a major planning application for an extension to an existing quarry. Condition 28 of approval LAO 8 2016-0383 required the submission of the construction method statement, which was to set out pollution prevention measures to protect the water environment during the development and restoration of the site. This condition was requested by NIEA Water Management Unit. The CMS submitted includes details on surface water flow regime, groundwater quality, and the groundwater flow regime, and sets out the mitigation measures which are to be employed, and these are detailed in the report circulated. Officers having consulted with NIEA are satisfied with the content of the CMS and are of the opinion that the conditions can be discharged. Officers therefore recommend the members agree to discharge the condition. Thank you.
Okay, members, any questions on this one? Okay, we'll move on to the decision phase. Any proposals from the floor, members? Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Chair. Happy to propose a recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor McLennan. So proposal on the floor. Any seconders for it? Councillor McLeod.
Yes, sure.
Okay, members, we have a proposal from Councillor McLeod, seconded by Councillor McLeod to approve the recommendation. Any other views? See any lights on? So all agreed, members? Okay, we're all agreed. So we're on to Appendix 17, application number LA08/2021/0846/DC. Hand over to Sinead.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. The post-discharge of conditions 9 and 10 on planning application LAO8 2020-024OF, and the reason is before the Planning and Regulatory Service Committee is because it's condition that relates to a major planning application. Condition number 9 stated that no site works of any nature or development shall take place other in accordance with the programme of archaeological work which has been submitted to and approved as per condition number 8. And condition number 10 required a programme of post-excavation analysis and preparation of an archaeological report to be submitted to and approved in writing by the Council. Archaeological testing was carried out and a report was subsequently written outlining the results of that excavation. Officers have carried out consultation with the EFI Historic Monument Unit, who are content that conditions 9 and 10 of plan approval LAO8 2020-024OF can be discharged. On this basis, officers recommend that the application be approved.
Thank you, Sinead. Okay, members, any questions on this one? Cannot see any lights up, so we'll move into decision phase. Any proposals on the floor, members? Councillor Wilson was on first.
I'm happy to propose recommendations, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Chair. I'll second Councillor Wilson's proposal.
Okay, members, for proposal from Councillor Wilson, seconded by Councillor Savage to propose a recommendation. Any other views on the floor? Okay, members, are we all agreed? Okay. Okay, members, we're moving on to Appendix 18, which is application number LAO8/2021/0626/DC. I'll just bring in Councillor Nicholson here.
Yep. Thanks, Chair. It's going to be an early night, but an earlier one for me. I want to declare a pecuniary interest in this application, so I will leave the chamber. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nicholson. Okay. Just going to hand over to Sinead to take us through this presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. The application is proposed to discharge condition number 10 of application LA08 2019-0999F. And the reason the application before the Plan and Regulatory Service Committee is because of a condition that relates to a major application. Condition number 10 stated that notwithstanding Part 5, Class A of the Plan and General Permitted Development Order, no development shall take place until the construction management plan and statement has been submitted to and approved in writing by the Plan Authority. The approved plan and statement shall be adhered to throughout the construction period and shall provide for parking of vehicles on the site for site operatives and visitors, routes for construction traffic, method of prevention of mud being carried onto the highway, location of soil heaps and management of dust on site, and arrangements for turning vehicles. In short, this application removed the developers' permitted development rights in relation to construction activity. Officers have considered the construction management plan as submitted, which highlights the proposed methodology used for the safer operation of the site and includes and provides for all the information set out in the aforementioned condition. And as such, officers are content to discharge condition 10 of LA08 2019-0999F.
Thank you, Sinead. Okay, members, any questions? I'm not seeing any lights on, so move into the decision phase. Any proposals from the floor, members? Councillor Duffy.
So I agree with the officer's recommendation and proposal. Sure.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. So proposal to accept the recommendation. Any seconders? Councillor Tillman.
Happy to second, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Tillman. So a proposal to accept the recommendation from Councillor Duffy, seconded by Councillor Tillman. Any other proposals on the floor, members? Not seeing any. All agreed, members? Okay, members, that's us. Just left to me to thank the planning officers, the legal advisors, democratic services staff, IT team, and all of yourselves, members, for facilitating the smooth running of this meeting. So just ask the IT team to end the live link.